Imagine ordering like a single average-sized bottle of vitamins online. And 2 days later, a delivery truck pulls up and drops off a cardboard box the size of a microwave.
Oh, we have all been there. It is absurd.
Right, you cut the tape, open the flaps, and there it is. Your tiny plastic bottle is just floating in an ocean of plastic air pillows and yards of bubble wrap.
Yeah, it's completely disproportionate to the actual product.
It is basically a highly protected, meticulously shipped cloud of dead air. Well, as of February 11th, 2025, that exact scenario, shipping that cloud of air, is officially illegal in the European Union. Welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be a really fascinating discussion.
Today, we are opening up a massive stack of official European Commission fact sheets and the, well, very dense, newly adopted legal text of the Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation, officially known as Regulation 2025-40.
It is quite the read, I have to say.
I bet. And our mission today is to decode exactly how this sweeping piece of legislation is about to fundamentally rewire your everyday life. We are talking about a complete overhaul of how your online orders are shipped, what physically touches your takeaway food, and even how you throw away a simple tea bag.
It really touches almost every aspect of daily consumption.
Okay, let's unpack this. Pun fully intended. I want you to imagine the trash can sitting in your kitchen right now. By the end of this conversation, you are going to look at that bin and everything inside it in a completely different way.
But before we get into the actual mechanics of how this works, we should probably lay our cards on the table about what we are doing today. These documents represent intense, sweeping political mandates.
Right, and naturally, people have very strong feelings on both sides of this. Debates about government overreach, corporate regulation, and environmental protection.
Exactly. But today, we are taking off our political hats. We are not here to endorse any viewpoint, left or right. Our purpose is just to look at the blueprints.
Yeah, we are impartially exploring the facts, the data, and the literal text of the regulation so you can understand the reality of the landscape ahead. Just looking at the engine to see how it runs.
That's like a great way to put it.
And to understand why they built this new engine, we have to look at the breakdown of the old one. The statistics in these commission fact sheets are honestly staggering when you try to visualize them.
They really are. The sheer volume is hard to wrap your head around.
I mean, in 2022, the EU generated 186.5 kilograms of packaging waste per person. That is roughly the weight of 2 full-grown adult men per person, just in empty boxes, wrappers, and bottles every single year.
And it is not just the end consumer waste. When you look at the raw materials, 40% of all plastics and 50% of all paper used in the entire European Union goes strictly toward making packaging.
Wow. Half of all paper, that's wild.
Yeah.
And out in the ocean, packaging makes up half of all marine litter.
Yeah, so that sheer volume is the actual catalyst for this regulation. It is replacing a much older directive from 1994, but it is not just a standard update. It is a total philosophical pivot.
How so? Like, what is the core difference in philosophy?
Well, for decades, the entire strategy was focused on the end of the line, recycling. Like, how do we manage the garbage once it is already garbage? This new text shifts the regulatory burden to the beginning of the life cycle, right to the design phase.
So stopping the problem before it starts.
Exactly. The overarching goal is to mandate a low-carbon circular economy. They are putting a hard timer on the industry. By 2030, all packaging on the EU market must be recyclable in a strictly defined, economically viable way.
Okay, and I saw there was another deadline after that, right?
Yes. By 2038, packaging has to hit at least a grade B on a new recyclability performance scale just to be legally allowed on a shelf.
Hold on, what does grade B actually mean in a legal sense? Because, recyclable is a word companies throw around all the time. Is this just another vague participation trophy for trying?
Not anymore. That is exactly the loophole the text is closing. In the past, a company could claim a complex, multi-layered plastic pouch was recyclable just because, theoretically, a specialized lab somewhere could break it down.
Oh, like a technicality.
Right.
Yeah.
Under the new scale, grade B means that at least 85% of the packaging unit, by weight, is successfully recycled in practice and at scale across member states.
Meaning the system actually has to exist in the real world.
Precisely. It means the infrastructure to recycle it must actively exist, and the design cannot obstruct that process. If you glue a paper label to a plastic bottle using an adhesive that ruins the recycling machinery, that package fails the grade and is banned from the market.
I see. It is like a massive financial debt we have been ignoring, and the bill just finally came due. But wait, If we know that recycling plastic saves roughly 5 times the fossil fuel emissions compared to just burning it in an incinerator, why are we still generating so much virgin plastic?
That is a great question.
I mean, why hasn't the free market just naturally shifted to recycled materials to save money?
Because the economics were completely upside down. Historically, extracting oil and pumping out virgin plastic has simply been cheaper and more highly subsidized.
Cheaper than recycling.
Yeah, much cheaper than running the complex, labor-intensive logistics required to collect, sort, clean, and process high-quality recycled plastic. The older regulations just lack the teeth to artificially correct that market failure.
So how does the new law actually force that correction?
This new law steps in and mandates mandatory recycled content targets. Depending on the type of packaging, producers are now legally bound to use a certain percentage of post-consumer recycled plastic.
Ah, so they literally have to buy it by law.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By forcing them to buy it, the EU is artificially creating a massive, guaranteed market demand for recycled materials,
Yeah.
which in turn forces the necessary investment into the recycling infrastructure.
But to get that high-quality recycled material to feed the system, you have to drastically change the physical design of the trash itself.
You do. You have to change how things are built from the ground up.
Let's go back to that tiny vitamin bottle and the massive box we talked about. I know they are cracking down on empty space, but how does the EU practically enforce a ban on dead air? Are they sending inspectors with tape measures into every Amazon fulfillment center?
No. The enforcement relies on algorithmic compliance and strict physical ratios. The regulation mandates that for grouped packaging, transport, and e-commerce packaging, the empty space ratio legally cannot exceed 50%.
Wait, 50%. If I order something oddly shaped, like a desk lamp or a bicycle helmet, how does a warehouse packer calculate the empty space of a curve in real time?
Well, they don't do it manually. The regulation actually defines empty space using a bounding box algorithm.
A bounding box algorithm? That sounds intense.
It is. Essentially, logistics companies have to calculate the minimal rectangular box that perfectly encompasses the product and compare that volume to the shipping box.
Okay, so what about all the filler material?
Any space filled with bubble wrap, packing peanuts, or crumpled paper legally counts as empty space. E-commerce giants are going to have to massively upgrade their automated 3D scanning and box cutting machines to literally custom fold cardboard around the exact dimensions of your order on the conveyor belt.
That is a staggering logistical shift. I mean,
Yeah.
buying a highly protected cloud of air is going to be a thing of the past. And I assume this isn't just about saving cardboard. It is about the secondary effects, right?
Oh, absolutely. If you shrink the box, you're shipping less air.
Which means you fit, what, 20% more boxes in a delivery van or on a global cargo ship?
Exactly. The reduction in dead air directly translates to millions of fewer trips by diesel trucks and cargo ships. And it doesn't start with the warehouse either. The regulation also goes after deceptive packaging on the retail shelf.
Like what? What counts as deceptive?
Double walls and false bottoms. You know those thick plastic jars of face cream that look huge on the outside but only hold an ounce of product inside?
Oh, yeah, those are the worst. You open it and it's basically a shallow little dish of cream.
Those are being heavily restricted now because they violate the core requirement for packaging minimization. The design is legally deemed superfluous.
But it isn't just the giant boxes and thick plastic jars clogging up the system. I was looking through the definitions in this text, and they get incredibly granular.
What's fascinating here is how the EU had to literally redefine the legal concept of packaging to capture the microtrash we don't even think about.
Right, like the little sticky labels you find on fresh fruit and vegetables, coffee pods, individual little bags your pee comes in.
Yes, under this new law, those are officially classified as packaging.
But why bother with the sticker on an apple? It is literally a fraction of a gram of plastic. It seems so minor.
Because there's a fraction of a gram that dictates the fate of an entire waste stream. It ultimately comes down to human behavior.
Okay, how so?
You eat an apple, and you toss the core into the compost bin with the sticker still on it. You throw your wet tea bag straight into the bio-waste. If that sticker or that tea bag mesh is made of conventional petroleum-based plastic, it shreds into microplastics.
Oh, I see. And that heavily contaminates the entire municipal composting system.
Exactly. The resulting compost becomes toxic to agriculture. By legally redefining these specific items as packaging and mandating that they must be industrially compostable, the regulation forces producers to design them so they safely dissolve.
They are putting the financial and operational responsibility back on the brand, which means fixing the physical structure of the box or the tea bag is really only half the battle.
Right, the physical shape is just one part of the puzzle.
The text moves from the structural design of the package down to the microscopic chemical makeup of the materials actually touching our food. The regulation introduces severe restrictions on substances of concern.
This is a huge shift for the industry.
We are talking about a ban on PFAS, which are per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, and bisphenol A, or BPA, in food contact packaging. Heavy metals like lead, cadmium, mercury, and hexavalent chromium are also strictly limited.
Yes, the heavy metal limits are very strict now.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This shifts the entire conversation. We are no longer just talking about saving landfill space or protecting marine life. This is a direct intervention into human health.
It is, and the inclusion of PFAS is a massive hurdle for the food industry. PFAS are often called forever chemicals.
Because they just don't break down.
Right. Yeah. They are a family of thousands of synthetic chemicals that are incredibly effective at resisting heat, oil, stains, and water. Think of the grease-resistant coating on a fast food burger wrapper or a microwave popcorn bag.
Yeah, that slick paper feeling.
Exactly. The problem is their molecular bonds are so strong that they almost never break down in nature or in the human body.
Right, but if they are universally used in food wrappers today and the EU is banning them outright, how is the industry supposed to adapt? I mean, what stops the fry grease from completely soaking through the paper bag and ruining your car seat?
That is the multi-billion-dollar research and development race happening right now. The industry is being forced to pivot to alternative barrier coatings.
Like what kind of alternatives?
We are seeing heavy investment in nanocellulose, advanced starches, and certain water-based polymers that can block grease but still safely break down.
That's fascinating.
The reason the EU is forcing this issue is because, scientifically, there is no recognized safe threshold for PFAS exposure. They are linked to carcinogenicity, mutagenicity, and reproductive toxicity.
And because they migrate from the wrapper directly into the hot food we eat, the risk is deemed completely unacceptable.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the European Union is currently pushing a broader chemical strategy for sustainability.
Which implies that you can't have a circular economy if the circle itself is toxic.
Precisely. If you diligently recycle millions of paper fast food bags that are secretly coated in forever chemicals, you aren't actually saving the environment.
You are just spinning poison into a circle, contaminating the next generation of recycled cardboard.
You hit the nail on the head. True circularity requires absolute chemical purity from the very start.
Okay, so the packaging of the future has to be physically smaller, with no dead air or false bottoms, and it has to be chemically safer, with no forever chemicals.
That is the baseline, yes.
But how does this actually hit the pavement? Like, how does this change the daily routine when you or I walk down the street to grab lunch?
The routine changes are going to be immediately visible to the consumer, particularly in the takeaway and dine-in experience.
Yeah, I read that takeaway businesses are now legally required to offer consumers the option to bring their own containers at no extra cost.
Right, they can't upcharge you for the inconvenience of using your own Tupperware anymore.
Furthermore, the HoReCa sector, which is hotels, restaurants, and cafes, will face outright bans on single-use plastics for food and beverages that are filled and consumed on the premises.
Which means the era of sitting at a table inside a coffee shop and drinking a latte out of a disposable plastic-lined paper cup is basically over.
It is a massive behavioral shift.
Yeah.
Honestly, it reminds me of the transition from buying CDs and DVDs to using streaming services like Spotify or Netflix.
That is an interesting comparison. How so?
Well, for decades, we felt the need to physically own the media. Or in this case, own the single-use coffee cup for the 20 minutes it took to drink the coffee, only to throw it away. Now, we are moving to a model where we are just subscribing to the delivery method. We are just borrowing the vessel from the cafe to stream the coffee.
That is an excellent way to frame it. You are shifting from a product ownership model to a service access model. But borrowing inherently requires a robust return mechanism. You can't just rely on the honor system.
Yeah, otherwise everyone just walks away with a nice ceramic mug.
Right. This brings us to the Mandate for Deposit Return Systems, or DRS. By January 1st, 2029, mandatory deposit and return systems must be established across the EU for single-use plastic beverage bottles and metal cans.
So you pay an extra 20 cents when you buy a soda, and you get it back when you feed the empty bottle into a reverse vending machine at the grocery store.
Exactly.
But wait, I saw there is an exemption in the text for certain countries.
Yes, there's a caveat. If a member state can mathematically prove to the Commission that they are already achieving an 80% collection rate for these items without a formal deposit system by 2026, they can request an exemption.
Oh, okay. So if they already have a great curbside program, they might skip it.
Yes, but realistically, for the vast majority of the block, paying a deposit and actively returning the physical container is going to become the universal daily standard.
But with all this borrowing, returning, and sorting, I can easily see consumers losing their minds.
It can definitely be confusing at first.
I mean, if I'm holding a container, how do I know if it goes in the recycling bin, the compost bin, or back to the grocery store for a refund?
The text actually addresses this potential chaos with a mandate for QR codes and harmonized labels.
Okay, how does that work?
Information architecture is crucial here. To make this complex circular economy function, the sorting instructions have to be foolproof and standardized. The EU is mandating harmonized symbols that will be identical across all member states.
So no matter what country you're in, the symbols match.
Exactly. You will see a highly specific pictogram on the side of the container you are holding, and you will see that exact same matching pictogram on the public waste receptacle. You just match the pictures.
And the QR codes take it a step further for the reusable stuff, right? Because if a cafe replaces a cheap paper cup with a thick, heavy-duty plastic reusable cup, but the customer just throws it in the trash anyway, that is actually a massive net negative for the environment.
Oh, absolutely. That heavy cup took way more carbon to produce. So this raises an important question. How do regulators prove the system is actually working?
And that is where the QR code comes in.
That is where the digital data carrier comes in. Usually a QR code, yes. It is not a link to a promotional website. It is a serialized digital passport for that specific cup.
Like a license plate.
Exactly. The cafe scans it when they hand it to you, and the centralized washing facility scans it when it comes back. Logistics companies have to track the rotations and trips of every asset.
They need hard data proving the reusable cup is actually surviving its required life cycle.
Right. Because otherwise the cafe is just distributing heavy-duty single-use plastics and faces huge penalties.
It is brilliant. They are literally turning a coffee cup into a trackable node in a logistics network.
It's a whole new paradigm.
But let's be realistic, not everything can be a heavy-duty, trackable, reusable container. We are still going to throw things away. Which brings us to the incredible confusion surrounding the word compostable.
Oh, yes. This is a big one.
As a consumer, you see the word compostable printed on a clear bioplastic cup. You feel a wave of environmental righteousness, and you throw it in your backyard compost pile with your carrot peels. But this regulation exposes a massive misconception about what that word legally means.
It is arguably one of the most misunderstood terms in modern packaging. The regulation draws a very sharp, uncompromising legal distinction between industrial composting and home composting.
So they aren't the same thing at all.
Not even close. The mechanics of the two environments are entirely different. Industrial composting facilities are massive, enclosed systems that operate at extremely high temperatures. We're talking often over 60 degrees Celsius, with tightly controlled humidity and microbial levels.
Okay, so it's basically a giant hot digester.
Yes, and that specific aggressive environment is required to break the molecular bonds of bioplastics. Your backyard compost pile, which relies entirely on ambient weather, dead leaves, and whatever worms happen to be nearby, simply does not generate that kind of thermal energy.
So if I throw that bioplastic cup into my backyard, it just sits there for years, completely intact, exactly like a regular petroleum plastic cup.
Precisely. And the regulation cracks down heavily on this greenwashing. Packaging can no longer simply be labeled compostable just to sound environmentally friendly if it is ultimately going to sit in a home compost bin forever.
Or worse, get thrown into the plastic recycling bin where its different melting point ruins a batch of standard plastic.
Right. Therefore, compostable plastics are now strictly limited and regulated. They are only mandated in very specific scenarios where they bring a clear functional environmental benefit.
Which is namely when they act as a vehicle to collect wet bio-waste.
Exactly. That is why the tea bags and the sticky labels on fruit have to be compostable, because their entire function is to go directly into the municipal organic waste stream where the industrial facilities can actually handle them.
And while we're on the topic of things that slip through the cracks and get thrown away, we have to talk about the plastic bag crackdown.
The rules there are getting significantly tighter.
Yeah, the lightweight plastic carrier bags. We are talking about the ones under 15 microns thick, those incredibly flimsy, translucent ones you pull off a roll in the produce aisle. They are being heavily restricted.
You can no longer use them for bulk foodstuffs unless it is strictly necessary for hygiene.
Right. Wrapping raw meat, raw fish, or raw dairy is still allowed because of salmonella and cross-contamination. But pulling off a flimsy plastic bag to hold 3 dry apples or a bundle of carrots is out. But why focus on the thickness of the plastic? Why 15 microns?
Because of how they behave in the environment. The aerodynamic properties of those bags are the main issue.
Ah, because they blow around.
Exactly. Those ultra-lightweight bags have the highest potential of any packaging to become marine litter. Because they have virtually no mass, they easily catch the wind, they blow out of garbage trucks, they escape municipal waste management systems, and they end up in the waterways.
So by banning them for loose produce, the EU is cutting off a major source of windblown plastic pollution.
That is the exact strategy.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out from the microns of a plastic bag, the algorithmic scanning of Amazon boxes, and the chemical structure of forever chemicals, what is the ultimate finish line the EU is trying to cross here?
The ultimate goal is a sustained, absolute reduction in the sheer tonnage of waste generation.
So not just better recycling.
Right. We aren't just trying to recycle the same mountain of trash more efficiently. The EU is trying to stop the mountain from growing in the first place. The text sets a binding, continent-wide target, an overall packaging waste reduction of 15% by 2040, compared to 2018 levels.
Wow, 15% is a massive number when you scale it across a whole continent.
It is a systemic, legally enforced unwinding of the throwaway culture that took over the global economy in the late 20th century.
It really is a massive journey when you lay the whole blueprint out on the table. We started this deep dive looking at 186 kilos of waste per person, and the mechanisms in this text literally touch every room in your house.
They really do.
They are algorithmically banning the hidden air in your e-commerce delivery, so global cargo ships run more efficiently. They are eradicating forever chemicals from your fast food wrappers, forcing an R&D race for safe alternatives to protect your health.
It's comprehensive, to say the least.
They are building an infrastructure that transitions us from owning our coffee cups to borrowing them, tracked by digital passports. And they are making sure the sticker you peel off your apple won't poison the agricultural soil. The next time you grab a takeaway box, you are literally holding a piece of this massive regulatory shift in your hand.
It definitely forces you to reframe how you look at the mundane objects we touch every day. And there is a final, broader implication to mull over here, stemming from this intense push for true circularity.
Okay, what is that?
Well, if the future of packaging relies on extreme, mandated durability, on endless tracking via digital data carriers, and on constant reuse systems where companies must prove their assets are surviving, we are fundamentally changing the nature of what a package is.
Right.
Will we eventually reach a point in society where packaging is no longer viewed as a cheap, disposable wrapper owned and discarded by the consumer? Instead, packaging becomes a highly valuable, heavily tracked technological asset permanently owned by logistics networks. You don't buy the bottle. You merely rent the bottle's surface to get the liquid inside. If that model scales across the entire global economy, are we witnessing the beginning of the end of garbage as a concept?
That is an incredible thought to leave on. The end of garbage. It makes you look at that plastic bin sitting in your kitchen right now in a whole new light. Maybe a decade from now, that bin won't even need to be there. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you. Keep looking closely at the systems behind the things you throw away, and we will catch you next time.